Hello and welcome. I'm Cliona Foley and this is Off the Bench, a podcast about women in sport which we hope will entertain and educate people of all ages and genders. And normally we are in a radio studio, we do our podcast and we send it out on a radio podcast, but sometimes we're really, really lucky and we get allowed into the Off the Ball, beautiful funky studio, which is where we are right now. And when this happens sometimes as well, we say, well, why waste it? So we bring in a panel of really good elite athletes and talk to them about their lives. So that's where we are today. We're in the Off the Ball studio. This is brought to you by Lidl, that is sponsors of the Ladies Gaelic Football League, and their hashtag is #serious support, and it's something we really feel strongly about here on Off the Bench as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to this panel. On my left I have Sinead Greene, half-back for Cavan Ladies Gaelic Football Team. In the middle is Shauna Cooke, who plays for Shelburne and has also played for Ireland at several levels. And last but not least, down the end is Ashling Tarpey, who is the goalkeeper with Mayo Ladies Gaelic Football Team. So everybody, welcome to Off the Bench.
Thanks. Thank you.
Great to have you in here. And we have so much to talk because you all have very interesting lives personally and very interesting sports stories to tell. We have to start today, unfortunately, because it's barely a few days old. But the Lidl Ladies National League football finals were on at the weekend. And sadly, two of you played, or two of you were involved, and two of you were on the losing side. So tell us, in your own words, Sinead, tell us about Cavan. You were playing Tipperary in the Division 2 final.
Yeah, so for the second year in a row, we made it to the Division 2 final. Last year, Westmeath bet us after a replay, and then this year, Tipperary bet us by a point on Sunday. It really is actually so heartbreaking.
Is it?
Genuinely, like last year, you're sad and that, but you're like, there's always next year. But now I just feel like 2 years in a row, it's going to be quite hard to pick ourselves back up again. Haven't obviously watched the game back again, but it was so close, like to come down to the last couple of seconds.
It was a brilliant game of football as well.
Yeah.
And it ended very controversially, so tell the listeners what happened.
Yeah, so 20 seconds left on the clock and we were a point down, so we really needed a score of any sort. And Ashling Doonan got the ball inside into one of our forwards, Brona Sheridan. And I have watched it again and again, and she seemed to catch the ball and try to take her players on. And it's hard to know, and it is hard to know, but it looks like the Tipperary girl pulled the ball from her hands and Brona fell down. Now, the most frustrating bit is that the referee blew the whistle.
Blew the whistle, put the hands out, penalty straight away, and everyone in the crowd went, "Oh my God, they're a point down, penalty." Yeah. Literally, I think was there 10 seconds on the clock or something?
Yeah, so my argument would be, if he wasn't sure, blow the whistle and wait and discuss with the umpires then. But when we seen the hands out, I was genuinely like, oh my God, because I was so confident Brona would score the penalty.
She was playing brilliantly as
super,
well.
And that she loves that drama and that tension, so I was like, super. And then all of a sudden it's a throw ball and the game's over.
His umpires seemed to call him over and they had a discussion.
Yeah.
And then he overruled the penalty decision and gave a hot ball or a throw ball.
Yeah, I think Brona herself said that the Tipperary girls were kind of like, you have to discuss with your umpires, like you do have to discuss it. So they seemed to go into them and then they had a quick chat and all of a sudden it was throw ball.
And loads of people were saying, why wasn't there a free out? Did she foul somebody? If there was a foul, there should have been a free out. Why did he give a throw ball? Now, my understanding of it he gave is if a referee feels they made a mistake on a call, they're basically putting their hand up by giving a throw ball, and that seems to be the ruling that he made, was that he made an error, but only after talking to the umpires. It was a really, really big call to make, wasn't it?
Massive. And look, I know, and I wouldn't like to be in the referee's shoes myself. I know it's really, really hard, and those calls are so hard to make, but I feel like it happened here and the umpires would have been behind, as where he was front on and could have actually seen it maybe better than his umpires, and that's why I thought his initial call, do you know, you're telling young girls and young boys, you're not going to change the referee's mind, so don't argue with him.
Yeah.
And then
a referee changed their mind.
Yeah, in a big game, like a lot at stake. But look, it happened. There's nothing we can do about it now. So we just have to build for us a championship and get over it.
So tough because it was such a brilliant game. I mean, the scoreline was 3-11 to 0-21. It was an incredibly high standard of a Division 2 final as well. And last year you went to a replay with Westmeath, but it means you're there. You just need to get that trophy.
Yeah, look, we know that ourselves. We are thereabouts. But it's just getting there. Like, I really felt this year could have been our year. Like, with girls like Roisin O'Keefe back from injury, Brona Sheridan back from injury, Grania Midlade came back, and we had a couple of girls up from minor. So I just felt like there was still a really good balance. And we still had the older girls like Donna English and Ashling Doonan. So I thought this year would have been the year to do it. But it wasn't to be.
And it's hard. I mean, it is so hard to come back when you don't win those finals. And Ashling, with Mayo, you have been there, you've come close, and you weren't playing at the weekend. We'll talk about your injury in a little while. But replay with Dublin of last year's All-Ireland final and the Division 1 final, I mean, and you lost as well. But would you feel the same? Would you feel as hard done by, or do you think it was a fair result, if you like, with a better team win?
Likewise, I suppose it was very disappointing. I mean, credit to Dublin, they had serious aggression levels on the pitch, and we just couldn't match it on the day. So I suppose in that sense, if you look at it that way, it probably was. It could have been a fair result if you look at it that way. But again, we're very, very disappointed about it. But there's a lot we can take from it, and we have a bit of a break now between now and our next game, our next championship game. But yeah, we haven't had success really, I suppose, since 2012 in any sort of league form.
And you'd had such a good league, everyone was kind of tipping you maybe to give Dublin a really serious rattle.
Yeah, I suppose the same kind of happened in 2016 as well. We went through all the league stages and won every match and played Cork in the final, and unfortunately it wasn't to be that year either. So yeah, I think people thought that, you know, it might be a better match than the All-Ireland final back in September, but again, it just wasn't to be. But hopefully, you know, we can work on the stuff that didn't go for us on the day.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Shauna was in Parnell Park and watching the matches at the weekend, so tell us why.
Well, I wouldn't, you know, offend anybody in giving a very bad analysis, but I mean, I was at the All-Ireland final last year, which was a fantastic contest, and this was my second time watching the Mayo Dublin game, and I don't know, there's a great rivalry there.
Did you go because there's such a great rivalry, or would you have an interest in Gaelic football as well?
I have an interest in any women's sport.
Any women's sport,
and I'll go and support when I can, but I think that obviously we've got a player, Siobhan Killeen, playing for Dublin this year.
Who plays with Shelburne?
Yeah. So she's involved with the Dublin setup, so that's an added incentive. But I just think you know, there's great athleticism in the GAA, and it's amazing to watch. I really think, you know, the level of commitment all the girls give, the passion. For me, I always encourage my teammates and other soccer players to go, because I'd love to be able to replicate that in soccer.
Really? Yeah. Well, it was. I mean, the two finals were great finals, and they were two brilliant. The Division 3 and the Division 4 finals the next day, they were played in Burr, but there was two hat tricks in them. And even though I know the Wexford Meath game probably looked like it was a more foregone conclusion, or the Wicklow Louth game looked like it was, the Wexford Meath game, Division 3 game, was a fantastic game. Wexford won it. If anybody hasn't seen it, go back and have a look on the TG Cahir thing, or maybe Jerome Quinn's videos. Katrina Murray scored 3 goals. She scored 3-5 for Wexford. She scored all 3 goals were kicked with completely different parts of her feet, from completely different distances, and in completely different parts of the net. They were sensational, and just the standard was just brilliant as well. So like, it's rising all the time, Sinead, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's like, you can just, what happened this year, there's so little between Division 3 and 2, particularly like Tipperary took Wexford to a replay in the Division 3 final last year.
That's right.
And now they're in Division 1.
Yeah.
And so there's very little between the teams. We actually played Meath in a challenge before the National League started, and I think we only bet them by a point. Like, there's serious. The gap is somewhat closing,
and that's healthy, isn't it?
Brilliant. The more competition, the better. Yeah.
I think so. That was the worry when Cork were so dominant for so long. It's interesting now that they're not, and that other teams are coming. And as you say, the gap between Division 3 and 2 isn't that much.
It isn't that much now. I do think there's still a bit of a gap between Division 2 and the top teams in Division 1. I just know from watching, we only watched maybe 20 minutes of the Mayo Dublin game Sunday. And I think the pace, like, our pace was fast, but I think the pace was up
pace
again.
That was blistering, and also that Dublin mass defence that they play is, you know, that is really, really difficult to break down. That's what you had trouble doing, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of, they had a sweeper back there, and I suppose we weren't too sure about it, how we could overcome it, and unfortunately, you know, their aggression levels really kind of sealed the deal for them.
The interesting thing I think about the game at the weekend was that I expected there to be a bigger crowd at it, you know, and I just thought Parnell Park, two really good top class Division 1, Division 2 finals, and yet they only filled one side of Parnell Park. And I mean, were you surprised at that, or even coming from a soccer side of it, Shauna? What did you think? Did you think that was a great crowd or not?
Yeah, I thought it was a good crowd, but I know there was a bit of confusion. Tickets being sold online, or then people were told that they could get them at the game. So, and then I know a few of the teammates were saying, "Oh, you can't get them at the game. You have to buy them online." So, I think maybe people, on the day were probably just thinking like, we might not get a ticket. There's no point in going. Yeah. So probably just better communication maybe.
Yeah, and we often say that about women's sports, that this notion sometimes of fixtures moving or confusion about tickets, it's never, there often seems to be little things like that can put people off going to games, and really it was a beautiful day. The other thing that struck me about it was like there were no men's championship games on at home, so I thought here's an opportunity now for really big crowds to turn out, as they did for the All-Ireland finals last year, and I was just surprised that the crowd wasn't bigger, Sinead.
Yeah, well, I don't know what it's like for Mayo, but for our National League games in general this year, there wasn't great crowds at any of them, so Sunday was probably a big crowd to us. Right. And I'd say for the 4 teams involved, there was a lot of support from 4 counties, but there was probably very few neutrals at the game,
absolutely,
which is what you want to target and you want to come. Now, it always bugs me, and it probably will forever bug me, that there's so many people in the county that still don't come out and support the women's team. I don't know what it is or why. Maybe they just need to come once and see that the standard is quite good and is quite high. I think people have kind of got a perspective that it's not, and it's lesser of a standard to the men's, but if they even just came once and watched standard, and especially with the Division 1 game on afterwards, it would have been a great
I mean, it was a goal. Dublin scored a goal. The goal after half time was as good as anything you're going to see all year. But I mean, some of the footballing was fantastic. And you've been playing really good football for the last few years.
Yeah, and look, Cavan are great, and people do always come out and support us, and the county board are fantastic at advertising and getting, trying their absolute best to get everyone out. But I don't know what it is. It's just still not overly happening for us.
And Mayo GAA, Mayo pride themselves as being the best supporters in the country. But I often think, Ashling, are they the best men's football supporters in the country? I mean, do they follow the women's game as well?
I suppose that's a point to be argued, because over the past couple of years the support wouldn't have been fantastic, especially at our home games in Mayo. But there was 2 games we actually played in Swinford this year, and they were very, very well supported.
Really?
The stand now, it is quite small, but it was filled at the pitch. But again, it was disheartening that a lot of the crowd were evidently from Dublin the other day. It was kind of like a sea of blue when you looked up at the stand. So maybe it was just that the support didn't travel to Dublin, but it definitely is there. It's just about how we get them there.
And Shauna, you're playing, obviously you're playing for Shelburne now. Is there a crossover in the support for men's and women's in soccer? And do you have any ideas about how it can be improved?
No, the attendance for the women's games are really low. I think the only way it can really be improved is, I would say, trying to play more men's and women's games side by side.
Together?
So I think that would help.
Does it happen at all in Irish soccer?
No.
None at all. Even though you have a men's team, technically, and a women's team in the same club.
The only day it happens on is the Aviva, the All-Ireland final day.
Like the FA Cup, the FA Cup final, that's the only time.
Yeah, and the crowds are decent, but I think, for us, we play in the AUL, our men's team play in Tolka, and it's not very accessible for people to get to, and it's communication. Just I think our fixtures are on Google now, but even today I was looking up our game for Saturday, and it has us down playing in Morton Stadium as our home ground,
So there's something that just needs to be fixed and not hard to do, communications. And it's funny, we talk to a lot of people in different sports, and women often say this, that it's just not clear. There's always this thing about fixtures, where are they on? They get changed, they get moved into a different pitch because somebody else wants a pitch, and this doesn't help you, definitely. When we're talking about crowds, it was the English FA Cup women's final at the weekend. They got a record crowd of 45,423 people to Wembley, which was fantastic. Arsenal and Chelsea. No fairy tale ending, unfortunately, for Irish internationals Louise Quinn and Kate McCabe, who play for Arsenal. They were beaten 3-1 by Chelsea. But I wondered, there were two things that I took from it, Shauna, and I'm sure you were looking at it as well. Tell our listeners about Fran Kirby, because I just think Fran Kirby's the best thing ever, and possibly maybe because of her size.
She's an amazing footballer, and she's just gone from strength to strength. I think it was a master stroke by Fran to sign for Chelsea. She probably had a million clubs looking for her, but she knew that Gemma Hayes would make her, you know, a world-class player.
Yeah, she was with Arsenal at one point.
She was with Reading.
Yeah, she started out with Reading, that's right. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Gemma Hayes was with Arsenal. You're right. Yeah, she's only 5'2". I'm 5'2.5". So she's even smaller than I am. But she plays like 6 foot something. She's incredible, isn't she?
Well, fortunately enough, I've never played against her.
I wondered, had you?
We played against Great Britain in Kazan in the World Student Games. I had broken my foot in the game before, so I got out of playing against her. But like, I
didn't have to go that far.
I've come across her. Like, we've crossed paths a few times, and the one thing I love about her, she's just so humble, down to earth. You know, in Kazan, she was the player of the tournament by far, and we shared an accommodation block with Team GB, which was heartbreaking. But no, she was so lovely. She'd always be willing to sit down and chat and talk about the game. And
she's an absolute wizard of a player. She's a striker. She scored Chelsea's third goal, and it was just a sensational goal. And they have a Swiss international, Ramona Bachmann, and they play really brilliantly off each other. But there's a vibrancy about the way she plays football. She reminds me a bit of Leanne Kernan, who you play with in Shelburne. Just a tiny bundle of energy, but the skills are just incredible. Again, if anybody's never seen Fran Kirby, go look her up. But you mentioned Gemma Hayes, who is the Chelsea manager, and tell us about her, because again, a lot of people would never have heard of her, and what she did last weekend was pretty amazing, on top of everything else she's done.
Yeah, I think I was reading somewhere recently that she's known as the other special one at Chelsea,
really?
Which I think
that's lovely.
Well, I think it's a bit of an insult, because she's a lot better than Jose Mourinho.
Exactly. Yes, that's a good point.
No, I work with Emma at Arsenal, and you know, the thing about Emma is she's the only coach I've ever worked with that she doesn't just speak a great philosophy. She puts it into action.
Into practice. Yeah.
She has this like no ego policy.
Right.
So you know, I've seen her just in warm-ups just dropping people, because she knows their head's not in it, or they may be watching themselves on the big screen. So she's just brilliant, and you know, I think she kind of relates to everybody on a personal level. So she speaks to the best player on the team, you know, the same way she speaks to the youngest player.
Right.
And you know, she's just got that very personal approach to it.
She did a brilliant thing. She gave all of the players before the match, she gave them a rose out of her garden, an orange rose that she said represented, you know, this particular characteristics, and she wore one as well. So they were all presented with a red rose or an orange rose before they went out to play in the FA Cup final, and it was just something that kind of bonded them together. But uniquely for me, the thing that stood out and got a lot of coverage, and I know she doesn't like it, but what was particularly unique about her last weekend was that she was 33 weeks pregnant with twins, managing a team in the FA Cup final, and so a woman who's almost ready to give birth managed a team to win the FA Cup final in this incredible way. Like, she's been tipped to be the English women's manager. She's actually turned it down, and she didn't like a lot of references to it, and people said, oh my God, isn't she amazing? And she was like, no, I'm just doing my job. You know, pregnant women do their jobs. But my point was, you know, not everybody who's nearly 9 months pregnant with twins is on their feet all day coaching on a pitch. Do you know what I mean? Now, she sat down in the dugout. I think her medical advice was sit down, and she had the assistant manager go out and lead the team out. But I just thought she doesn't like to be singled out as a coach of a female team. She's like, she said, we need to take the gender out of it. I'm a coach, you know. And I mean, can you identify with that? I mean, all of you could possibly identify with that, Sinead.
Yeah, definitely. I think in GA as well, there's actually very few female coaches. If you look across the board, the majority of county teams, it's probably nearly all men. And I know at club level, I've only ever had men as well, bar maybe underage. Which is crazy. I don't know what it is, but it just seems to be the norm that it's a man that's going to be over you. Like, it is rare. I suppose Paula Cunningham was over Monaghan.
That's
ladies,
right, yeah,
previously.
and they have a female coach this year.
The female coach this year as well from Dunnamoyne, but
it's unusual.
It's unusual, yeah.
So she's going to be singled out, I think, because she is a woman, and because that was a very unique situation to have somebody, you know, who's almost, as I said, pregnant with twins, managing a team in an FA Cup final was very unusual. But I think she has paved the way for women, because the respect that she commands is incredible over there, Shauna. I mean, as I said, they think she probably was offered the women's job and said, no, I want to work with Chelsea.
She was definitely offered it.
Yeah.
She's the best. She's not just the best in England, she's the best in the world. And I think, like, you know, she would have been mad to leave Chelsea, because she's really created something special there. Like, she's created legacy, you know, and
I think if a woman is going to break into the coaching men's soccer at the top level in England, I think she could be the first, definitely. So again, to say to people, look her up, read about her. She's a fascinating woman, but she's really adamant about this thing, and she's saying, look, I'm just a coach. You know, I want to get rid of this gender discussion. I'm just a coach, but I don't think you can separate her from it, because she's so outstanding, and you know, she has, I think, paved the way. I think other women will be more keen to go into coaching when they see how successful that she's been. The audience size, actually, as well, let's not point out, was just slightly less than the 46,286 who turned up at the All-Ireland final last year. And as players, do you feel that energy? Does that help you when a crowd that size comes, Ashling, and you play in front of them?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I was lucky enough to play 10 minutes in the All-Ireland final last year, and when you ran onto the pitch, it was like this boom of energy just hit you. But then, you know, you focus on the game fairly quickly and you block it out. But it's like a veil is dropped around the stadium and everything's muffled, but you've never been in that situation before where there's that many people around you and you're just one person on a pitch. But it would be something amazing to experience again, and definitely looking back, you know, hopefully next year a crowd as big
will build again.
Exactly, we'll build
well,
again.
that's the point, and that's the point you're making, Sinead, as well. Is like, why can't you get those crowds out all the time, not just for an All-Ireland final? I think that's the big challenge. The really interesting thing about you, Shauna, is that you didn't just play. You don't just play in Shelburne. You've played for Ireland, but you played for Arsenal. Yeah. And what was the biggest crowd you ever played before? Do you know?
I'm not really great with that stuff. I'm the type of player that a pitch is a pitch.
Really?
We played at the Emirates a few times.
Did you?
Yeah, end of the year, big crowds. The FA Cup final was huge, but there was a Champions League final in my first year. I was not on the bench I was watching it, but it was played at a stadium in Bournemouth. And I mean, it was like really old school. Like there was, you know, people sitting on the walls and
little white hankies on their heads. But it's nice to play. I think it means something to players. I think it gives you energy, doesn't it, Sinead, to play against people?
100%, yeah. Like you don't let them get in their head around like that on a big day. But as Ashling said, when you run out on that pitch, it is electric, and there's nothing worse than running out onto a pitch and the norm of maybe 5 or 6 people in the stand. Do you know, it's hard, and it's down-putting is where if you ran out and there was even a stand full of people, it would make such a difference. I feel like it really pushes players on.
It feeds your energy, doesn't it? It absolutely does. That's why we keep saying on the Off the Bench, it's so important to try and build an audience for women's sport and get more people to appreciate it and to go along and not to be comparing it to men's sport, just to appreciate it for what it is itself. I think that's the big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think as well, a lot of people don't understand that we put in the same effort that our male counterparts do across the board in all sports, in all women's sports. Like, you wouldn't be competing at the top level of women's sport if you didn't put in the same effort.
Yeah.
I think they just think it's like a pastime or a hobby for us, but we put in every bit as much effort, soccer, athletics, everything, as our male counterparts do. Yeah,
and that would be proven, listeners, because they're all racing off to training tonight after we finish here. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I think you're right, people don't appreciate probably the level of training. The Lidl's involvement with women's Gaelic football has definitely given an appearance, a push, a publicity thing that has never been there before, and they have just announced that they're going to continue their sponsorship for another 3 years. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but first of all, I met with Aoife Clarke, who's the head of communications with Lidl, and just asked her why are they investing and what does it mean. So I'm here with Aoife Clarke, who's head of communications with Lidl Ireland, and obviously, Aoife, you have just reinvested in ladies Gaelic football. Can you tell me what's the new sponsorship?
Yeah, so we're delighted to be extending our deal with the Ladies Gaelic Football Association. So we're committing to an extra 3 years and an additional 3 million. So we're coming up, I suppose, to the end of our third year, and it's been so successful for us that we're delighted, I suppose, as a brand to be able to recommit and continue with our serious support campaign.
And when you say success, like, what does that mean really? Like, why? It has had huge impact, and some people could say, could you have even more impact when you've had as much as you had? So why would you reinvest nearly at this stage?
Yeah, I suppose, not to steal like a political phrase, but lots done, but still more to do.
Yeah.
You know, we have invested hugely over the 3 years, especially at grassroots level, but we still feel like there's huge potential there. It's a brand that's growing. It's a very ambitious brand, so I suppose it mirrors our values as well as a company. So we feel there's more potential. There's definitely more we want to do at all levels of the game, so right through from schools to clubs to county teams as well.
And like, we walk down Jones's Road now and we see that huge poster, serious support, and 4 female players up on that bridge as you go into Croke Park now, and we've all seen it around the country. But I wondered, what are ye most happy with in activating the sponsorship? What do you think you've achieved?
I suppose the feeling that we get whenever we do anything, be it through social channels or in store. You know, part of our mission as a company is to contribute to the communities that we're in. We have 155 stores, and I suppose the goodwill that we're seeing through our stores, through store managers, through feedback from local clubs that get kits, you know, we get a real kick out of that, I suppose. Letters that come in thanking us for that. So it's huge. So while it's great that we have that big platform like above the line support with those big billboards and stuff, I suppose we're getting the most satisfaction out of seeing, you know, young girls who've never had their own set of kit, getting those and being able to give them that opportunity as well. And I suppose being able to make role models as well for them. So, you know, we've 4 really strong ambassadors, 1 from each province, who we think are really strong, and, you know, they're great role models, I suppose, for all young girls that are playing the sport.
Yeah, they have somebody to identify with now, definitely. You can see that. Tell us a little bit about that trickle-down thing. Like, how does it affect clubs, and what can clubs get? I mean, I can see numbers here. There's 145 schools across Ireland got sporting equipment. 150 clubs received cash. 150 clubs received vouchers. I presume they were Lidl vouchers worth €500. But where do you feel it really does trickle down and it affects girls in clubs?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, grassroots is key for us. So I suppose we run through our stores a number of initiatives every year, and that has been through, I suppose, jersey donations and food. I suppose one thing I think is really good is our Lidl Future Stars, which have been some events for kids that have been held during the summer months. So we're due to launch this year's recruitment in the coming weeks. So it's a chance for girls to come, and it's kind of a skills day for them, but there's also an element for their parents or guardians as well to learn about, you know, the kind of nutrition they should be giving them, and the support that they can give them, I suppose. And we tie in a lot of the research that we did last year as well, which shows the benefits to girls from staying in sport as well. So,
of course. And that Future Stars thing, do you hold it around the country? How does it work?
So we had a number of venues last year, 1 in each province. So you know, we had St Bridget's in Dublin, we had 1 in Galway, and a couple of else around the country. So I think we had Cavan as well, and Cork. So there's a number of those, and girls from all over can come. So you can sign up to whichever one, I suppose, is closest to you, and they all go away with full kits, and they came away with footballs as well on the day. So it's a really great event, and it's run, I suppose, we would have some of the ambassadors there doing the skills with the kids as well. Yeah. So it's just great for them to, I suppose, get that interaction with a county player as well.
Yeah. I mean, we all, you know, as sports fans, we all had posters on our walls, but most of our posters on our walls probably were male athletes, because you couldn't get posters of girls on walls. Yeah. So I think probably, and even at Parnell Park last weekend, you know, you could see young girls recognising the players when they came off the pitch. They knew their names. How important is that, do you think?
Brilliant. Yeah, even at Parnell Park last week, I saw so many girls with the programme in their hand and a marker in their hand waiting to get autographs, and I hadn't seen that any other year. So I think even things like the Blue Sisters documentary was fantastic for the game as well. Just showing, I suppose, the commitment that the girls go through, and also how they juggle everything, I suppose, with their personal lives as well, because, you know, a lot of them have very demanding careers as well. So I think it's fantastic, and I think, you know, we want to be able to elevate them to that role model space, as you say. traditionally haven't been there. I suppose when I was growing up, I probably would have struggled to name any female footballers. But then I look at the likes of Breach Corkery now and stuff, and I think people like that have really set the bar very high. But I think in the ambassadors that we have 4 really strong characters as well, all from very different backgrounds, different profiles, and I think there's something there that kind of appeals to a girl, I would imagine, at every stage. And finally, you're putting in 3 million over the next 3 years. Is there any new innovations that you can tell us about at this stage, or what? Not at this stage. We've so many ideas, but we don't want to let the cat out of the bag just yet. So as I said, we are going to be launching a second phase of Future Stars in the coming week, so that's the next thing coming up. But I suppose everyone will just have to stay tuned and see what the next 3 years of your support will be like.
Great. Well, we hope it continues successfully for you. Thanks, Aoife.
Thanks for your time.
Shauna, you're obviously not playing Gaelic, and you're looking at that sponsorship from outside. How do you soccer players, how do you view it, and what do you think about it?
Well, it's incredible. I think it's brilliant. Any investment into women's sport is brilliant, and especially if it does filter down to younger players and young girls, because you've got to ignite that kind of inspiration and motivation in them. Whether it's Gaelic or soccer or swimming or running they choose to do, it's fantastic. But in terms of soccer, we're not quite there yet. It's going to take a bit longer. I think a lot of women's sports are jealous probably of that Lidl sponsorship. Do you know what I mean, Sinead? Because it has given you a visibility and a promotion that just wasn't there. Now, TG Carr have been brilliant, always showing your games, but it's like it's pushed it out further, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, it really has. They're super. They're absolutely fantastic. They were talking about the grassroots, and that's what it's key. Like, that's where you need to start. There's no point in pumping loads into county teams. You need to start lower, which they are at club level. Like, girls are going to want to go out and play in their brand new club kit and their shorts and their socks, as were in the past. Maybe 5 or 6 teams were sharing the one kit and it was grubby, and now they see this fresh, lovely new kit. They want to be the players out wearing them, and as I said, they're going down Jones Road and seeing the girls is super. Like, that would have never happened in the past. So they've really raised the profile, and absolutely fair play to them.
So as players, you can appreciate it, Ashling. You can see that it's having an effect.
Oh, definitely. It's really having an effect, I suppose, because even looking back to when I would have been younger, there was 2 girls in my town, myself and another girl, that played football for the boys team, and we had to go 10 minutes down the road then because we had no ladies football team at all in our town. Whereas now you're going out at the weekends or you're going down to support the girls, and there's under 8s, there's under 10s, there's under 12 girls playing, and you're just thinking to yourself, where are all these when I was growing up?
Yeah, exactly. Why wasn't anybody else playing then? Yeah.
So no, it's great to see, and I coached myself at one of the events last year in Galway, and to see the amount of work, the amount of effort, the gear, the food, everything that was available there for everyone, and it was just a massive incentive for girls to come out and just to play and have fun.
As I said, I think Gaelic football are lucky to get this sponsorship. The trick now would be for other women's teams and team sports to get the same kind of level of engagement, if you like. You all combine your sport with your careers. None of you get paid to play. No? No one's getting any checks any week. No, never are with women. So tell us a little bit. I'm interested. Both Ashling and Sinead are PE teachers, and actually you know each other, even though you play for different counties. Explain why, Sinead.
Yeah, no, we both studied PE and biology in DCU, so I was 2 years ahead of Ashling, so I'm 3 years out of college, and this is Ashling's first year out of college.
Right, and then what do you do for a living?
Mine's a bit more boring.
I don't think so, Sean.
I just work in IT. I do a lot of content creation, Salesforce administration, website
you work
development.
for a small startup company, you were telling me, in Dublin.
Yeah.
What are they called?
Stint Ireland.
Stint, it's a great name. Yeah, it's a great name. But the interesting thing is that you didn't go to college. You didn't go the same route as these went at all, because soccer was all you wanted to do, Shauna, when you were a kid.
Yeah, I just, I grew up in Cooke, working class area, and soccer was the game, and everybody played. Like, I think I was the only girl that, played out.
Same with the boys, the usual one,
and, for me, I was never really good in school, so, that was the only option I had.
That was the thing that you excelled at.
Yeah.
And you have a fascinating background in that you went to, did you go to Arsenal first?
Yep.
You went over to Arsenal, and then how long were you there?
I was there for just over 3 years, kind of ended with me fracturing my face in 3 places, so
In a training ground accident or a game?
It was a bit of a silly situation. The academy were playing on a Friday afternoon, and the boss, Gemma Hayes, wasn't there, so I thought I'd sneak on for a few minutes to get a run out. And was playing against an American college. A girl wasn't wearing boots on Astro and slipped and hit me right in the face. And literally, it was a sequence of events. Then Emma ended up going back to America. I wasn't training at all, and a new guy came in and just wanted to shake things up.
And that's the difficulty of playing semi-professional sport.
Yeah.
If the manager changes, suddenly you can be out.
Yeah.
It's slightly different in inter-county, do you know what I mean? But particularly in that kind of thing. And you went from Arsenal to where?
I came back home, and really wanted to just discover my love for it again. Going over to England, it was very competitive. Every day, you have to perform every day, and it's in Ireland there's a real friendship amongst teams here. Over there it was different. It was very competitive, and I kind of started to get into a routine of just playing football. So when I came home again, I dusted the boots off, went back out with Raheny again, St Anne's Park, and just discovered a love for it.
And then how did you end up at Durham?
We played against so with Raheny we were playing in a kind of cross-border competition up in Carrickfergus, and Durham I think had been asked to enter kind of last minute, and we played against them in a kind of just a friendly game, and afterwards the director of Durham came over to me and said, listen, would you fancy coming over and having a look, see what the facilities are like? There was nothing.
You ended up going back over to England to play soccer, but then you had another extraordinary twist. Tell us about the injury, and well, I suppose it was more than an injury, Shauna.
I playing in a game again. Wednesday seems to be the unlucky day for me. I think I should just avoid it. So I was playing in a game on a Wednesday, and I went up for a header and just didn't feel quite right. Came down after it and decided to carry on. And then about 3 days later, I just ended up collapsing. And it was about 4 months in and out of hospital, and then I was diagnosed with a condition.
And what was that condition?
It's called Meniere's disease. So it's just a condition that affects the pressure in your ear canal. So it causes a lot of vertigo and sickness, nausea, things like sleep, nutrition are very important. So just managing my exercise level as well. So
you actually ended up giving up football?
Yeah, it caused a lot of anxiety. At that stage I was in the Ireland team, and I had to pull out, and I didn't really want anybody to know why I wasn't playing.
Really?
So Sue Ronan at the time was really kind and said,
Sarah's manager,
she said, we'll just say that you're just taking a break, but people are constantly asking you, like, where are you, And they had just lost to Germany in a big game as well, so people were saying, like, you should have been involved, that would have been a great game for you. So
and why were you afraid to tell people that you had what was essentially a very serious illness?
I think it's just like, I think I was in denial myself a bit. I think like when you're an athlete, you're very competitive at most with yourself, so I was just kind of like, I can beat this, like I can do it, and I don't want people to know about this weakness.
Yeah, I've come across that with athletes before. They won't give in themselves. Yeah. And so what did you came home eventually, because obviously you couldn't continue to play football, and you ended up, did you give up completely? Yeah,
like I came back and I tried to kind of play, but like, when I was over in Durham, my auntie unfortunately passed away quite suddenly, so just again a sequence of events, came home, and I took a break. Then people were saying just come back and play, but I was like really suffering with anxiety, like I'd be sweating and just like it's not like me to kind of text saying like I can't make it tonight, sorry, and like my mum and dad started to notice it, like they
so you were struggling mentally, Shauna?
Yeah, big time.
And did you get help with it, or how did you overcome it?
I kind of just broke down to mum and dad, and they said, listen, just take a step back, like it's just a game, it'll always be there, you're still young, you've so much to offer. And I kind of went to see a counsellor, and Jamie Kearns, the doctor in the FAI, was fantastic at speaking to me, and I've partial hearing loss in one ear, so that happened quite quickly, with the first time I collapsed, so having to deal with that as well on a football pitch was difficult. So Jamie was really great at just like telling me, that's like not the end of the world, let's take it day by day.
So you've got the necessary support at least there. And what brought you back to football? Because you're back playing League of Ireland Women's League for the last 2 years, are you?
Yeah.
Who persuaded you to go back?
So the girls had merged with Shelburne while I was out, and I'd always
Healy and Shelburne came together as Shelburne.
Yeah, and I always kind of followed the results and the games. And one of my best friends, Rachel Graham, was playing and still is, and she was just like, come back and just give us a dig out. You know, they lost Katie and a few other players had moved on, and she said, listen, you know, morale is low and we just need a moaner. We need someone to come in and moan.
To moan at them or to moan with them?
Moan at them.
Every team needs a moan.
Yeah. So, I said, listen, you know, I haven't played in 2 years. It's, you know, I'm going to need a lot of dusting off and oiling up before I go out. But I met with Owen Heary, who was actually now managing the Shelburne men's. Was actually coaching the women.
Right.
And I met with Owen and Mark. And I just really liked, like, they didn't kind of sell me something or tell me I was great or, you know, they were like, listen, come in, train, we'll see how you get on. And they really challenged me. They were like, you know, you're a bit older now, the game's moved on, and let's see how you cope. And like Mark had said, like, you probably won't play much, but we'll see. And I ended up in the first season just playing every game, like every minute of every game.
Right. But they didn't try and mollycoddle you. Yeah, it was like, you were coming in on our terms, which is interesting. Yeah, that's a good thing sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, it was great. First season was fantastic. It was really a dream come true. So
brilliant. And all the anxiety, did that all go away gradually? Did sport help you to get rid of that? Do you still live with it?
No, I think it's still there. Like I've always been the type of player that, like, it doesn't matter who I'm playing against. Like, I could be playing on the road, like, and I still get nervous. Like, you know, some people find that funny. Like, I'd get nervous if we go out, if we know we're going to go out and win a game by a big scoreline to a close one. I've just always been like that. But I think I'm really better at, like, communicating it now, you know. And just
you're not afraid to communicate.
No, just being honest, you know. I think as well, being an older player, it's important for me to do that, because if I can do it, younger players can say, okay, well, it's okay to be nervous, or
great,
you know,
absolutely,
chat about it. Yeah,
it's a very good point. And Ashling, you've had serious injuries in the last year, and in fact, you came on in the All Ireland final last year, and you faced a penalty. You were a goalkeeper. You came on, and how quickly did you face a penalty? Within less than a minute, was it?
Yeah, it was about a minute, I'd say. I hurt myself back in July in the summer, and I was a little bit stubborn about it, I suppose, and I was like, okay, I don't want to take this.
Same thing, I'm not admitting to it.
I don't really want to take this too seriously, so I'm going to play on. So I decided to play on anyway, and I got a good while out of it, and then eventually I just went back training at my club one night and heard the infamous pop, I suppose, and knee was gone.
Sound of a cruciate going, a cruciate ligament going.
That was the second one. So
wow.
Yeah, I got it done then, and luckily enough the road to recovery it's been a little bit more straightforward than the last one. I suppose I knew what I was doing.
It was the second cruciate, and was it the same knee?
No, it was actually the opposite knee. The first one happened in 2016. Funnily enough, Sinead Ahern was also taking a penalty on me that night.
Wow.
I was playing at DCU, we were playing Dublin in a challenge match, and she was taking her second penalty of the night on me, and it was in the end of January. The pitch wasn't in great condition, and unfortunately just got stuck in the muck.
And women are, scientifically, women are more prone to cruciate injury ligament than men, which is extraordinary. Yeah. So are you back fully rehabbed now? Because you weren't ready to play in the league final, obviously.
I'm almost there now. I have another kind of maybe a week or two to get under my belt first, and then I'm back for testing, and hopefully then I'll be back playing. But I've also I'm playing with the club in Dublin at the minute. So.
Yes, we should reveal this. You're switching your allegiances. Confess here to us now. What's the home club in Mayo?
My home club is Ballyhonus, and we actually only set our senior club up last year. So I suppose I knew I wouldn't be. I play outfield actually for my home club, and that's how the last cruciate happened.
And we should say you're teaching in Dublin now.
Yes,
teaching in Blackrock College in an all-boys school.
Yes, that's correct. So I suppose the club I've moved to now is quite close to there, so it does suit. And again, I don't think I'd be ready to play outfield this year. I kind of really want to look after my knees and let this be the end of it.
But you're joining.
Fox Rock Abintini.
Fox Cab, as they're known in the game, a very, very strong Dublin club. So some of that Dublin team that beat Mayo last week are going to be your teammates now.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the girls anyway. But yeah, I'll be bumping into them now a lot more frequently. They actually have a game tonight, so I'll be going out to watch that now.
So you'll be racing off. Interesting enough, just because we have you here, both of you, we've 2 PE teachers here, and I just wondered briefly before we finish, like your thoughts on teaching PE and, well, seeing what's being done to keep more girls in sport, and if it's changing, Sinead. I mean, do you teach mixed PE classes, boys and girls in the same class? Do you notice any difference between boys and girls?
Yeah, so last year I actually taught in a school, and it was a mixed school as well, but they separated girls and boys for PE, and I think for the girls that worked really, really well. But it's not the done thing. It's not supposed to be done. You're not supposed to segregate. So I think this year, a lot of it depends on the age group. I find 14, 15-year-old girls, unless they're really sporty by nature and really competitive, don't like doing PE with the boys. And I can kind of see where they're coming from. Like, there's a lot of differences between boys and girls, and you're asking them to go out and do the same thing and play the same on the same team with each other. So it's hard. But I don't really know how you'd overcome it in terms of PE. Like, I think a lot of issues are that if kids aren't into sport, like, they don't have the fundamentals. They can't catch,
they're not able to do the fundamentals.
Yeah,
exactly.
So therefore they probably feel under pressure and feel that they're not good enough, and then shy away and don't want to do it in front of the boys or in front of their classmates. So I think we need to go back further and look at, like, I know when I was in college I did my thesis on fundamental movement skills on kids in primary schools, and they're really, really low and they're really, really poor.
Yeah, and we know they're poor.
Yeah,
they're not getting
really
good enough.
poor.
They're not good enough coming into secondary school.
No, so I think we need to go back and look and see how we can fix that. And I know, like, you're not asking every child to be a footballer, to be a soccer player, but it's just getting out and getting active. Like, it's
and you
so
want to give them the skills to be able to do any sport they want to do with some level of confidence.
Exactly, like, it doesn't matter what it is, a team sport, exactly. Anything. That's what I'm always trying to say to them. But it is at that 14, 15, that vulnerable age, it's really, really hard to get that message across to them. But I do think it needs to go back younger and start younger.
And they need more PE in primary school. And Ashling, briefly, you're teaching in Blackrock College, so you're teaching boys PE, and are you also coaching, because physical education teaching is very different from coaching, are you also coaching boys there?
I helped out there with one of the junior rugby teams just after school as an extracurricular activity. Yeah.
And how do you find they receive a female coach? Do you notice any difference?
I guess a lot of the guys would have been used to me anyway. I would have taught most of them, so that was kind of a bit of an advantage. I was kind of looking after the fitness aspect of it rather than the coaching skills. So other than that, no. That's
great, because we want to see more female coaches. It's something we talk about here all the time, is getting women involved in more coaching, and then also getting women in more power positions in clubs. And Shauna, you're extraordinary, because in the past month you have been appointed to the board of Shelburne Football Club, and that is the whole board. It's nothing to do with women's football. No. That's the board. Yeah. So before we finish up, tell us, what does that involve, and what would you like to do with that?
It involves a lot of emails throughout the school and WhatsApp groups.
Right.
But no, it involves everything. So, a lot of people think being on a board is just speaking about what's happening on the pitch, but that's probably 10% of what goes on. It's a lot about the fan base, safety, underage structures, facilities. So, I've only been involved in very brief meetings and fan forums because it's just been a month. We've had a new investor come in, Andrew Doyle, whose brother actually was involved in the Irish women's rugby team a few years back.
Yeah, he was the manager. I'm presuming it's Goose's brother. Yeah, go on. Yeah, exactly. So, and what would you like to do as a member of Shelburne Football Club? Like, do you have something in your head and you think, I'd like to achieve that now that I'm there?
Yeah, I've been a fan of Shelburne since I was young. So as a fan, I want to see the men's team back in the top division. I want to see them performing and back in the glory days. When I was 10, I remember, sitting in Tolka Park, there wasn't a seat to be had.
Yeah, packed.
For a final. Yeah. In respect to the women's, it's about driving standards on, getting a bit more consistency. And you know, Andrew's been really, really open, and actually most of it's come from him in terms of, you know, pushing the women's section more into the club. At the moment it's very separate, even the junior section, so we're looking at it all coming under the one umbrella. There's going to be one governance model. Great. You know, there's going to be a director of football, a head of recruitment. Everybody's going to work together, and the idea is anything the men get, the women are going to get. It's going to take time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But what we want to do is hopefully stop players having to go to England to play.
Yeah, and people taking that route that a lot of people still have to take. Yeah. Well, look, that is a long route, and we always say it doesn't happen overnight. So here on Off the Bench, that's what we're about. We're trying to see, can we help women get more equality? Can we get more publicity? I think, obviously, you're all very involved in your sport at elite playing level, but there's potential for all of you because of your education and your involvement and your experience to go further, and maybe not just as players. She's thrown down the gauntlet to you girls. You'll have to start in future years. You could be doing that as well, either as coaches or administrators or whatever. But why not? Why don't we see women coaching men? Why don't we see women running clubs? You know, that's important as well. We've loved having you in and Off the Bench. We hope you enjoyed it as well. Before we go, we say continued good luck to you. Championship for you this summer. Obviously the Women's Continental Tires League is continuing. It's really only started the season, so you have a big year ahead of you, Shauna. We will be back in 2 weeks' time with another podcast, and it will cover things like Katie Taylor's latest world title fight, and also we'll have to talk about the retirement of two legends, Nina Carberry and Katie Walsh, recently, two fantastic jockeys who have been real groundbreakers for Irish women in sport. You can catch all of our previous episodes on iTunes, or if you go to offtheball.com and go into their podcast series, you'll find the Off the Bench. Scroll down and you'll find it in there. You subscribe for free, and we also have a Twitter account which is at Off the Bench OTB, capital OTB. We post stories from national and international women's sports news there, and we also would love you to interact with us, and if you have any ideas that you want us to cover on the podcast, let us know. So until then, thanks a million for coming in, girls, and best of luck with the rest of the season, and enjoy your sport, everyone, and take care. Thank you.